On January the 11th, 1908, I had the pleasure of declaring the Grand Canyon a national monument. The Congress had been debating whether or not the Grand Canyon should be established as a national park. The Grand Canyon, one of the greatest, most majestic, most indescribable pieces of wonder that this country has to offer. They were debating as to whether or not this land should be protected for generations to come. I had the privilege of traveling to the Grand Canyon in between inspection tours of the Yellowstone and the Yosemite, and I saw the great grandeur of that land. But I was also aware of the encroaching tourist trappings of hotels and the like, and the danger of the overuse of the mining industries and timber industries. I was fearful that this land would be lost to future generations. The Congress was in the midst of the debate, but they needed to, as John Muir put it, empty their heads of all vanity and look. Unfortunately, that did not seem to be possible. There were men of Congress who had their hands very deep in the pockets of the mining and copper industries and the timber industries, and they were blinded by the money that they could skin off the land for a few years, rather than see the potential of ensuring that our children's children enjoy all the benefit of it. Fortunately, John Lacey had established, and Congress had passed, and I had approved, the Act for Preserving America's Antiquities, in which it proclaims that the President of the United States is hereby authorized in his discretion to declare by public proclamation historic landmarks, historic and prehistoric structures, and other objects of historic or scientific interest that are situated upon the lands owned or controlled by the government of the United States to be national monuments. So, rather than have the Congress bicker and argue over whether or not the Grand Canyon should be a national park, I simply walked around the Congress entirely and declared it a national monument instead. It is a shame that the Congress could not see the wonder of that land and protect it as a national park.
Actually, President Roosevelt, that's not the end of the story.
I beg your pardon?
After you declared the Grand Canyon a national monument in 1908, there was still the question of how to best care for and protect the land. That fell under the care of a number of different groups, including the War Department for a little while, the General Land Office under the Department of the Interior, and ultimately it fell under the auspices of the United States Forest Service. They were more than happy to help make sure the land was protected, but tourism was not exactly their highest priority. As a result of it, trails began to be poorly kept. Tourism was growing through the use of railroad travel, but also the advent of a little thing called the Model T Ford was causing a great deal more traffic, people driving onto the grounds and setting up impromptu camps, and as a result of it, littering and other poor care of the land began to grow. There was a growing interest in caring for these lands as the treasures that they actually were. Conservationists and other organizations were truly pushing for the creation of a national park service. And that became, of course, the law of the land, as it were, under Woodrow Wilson in 1916. Sorry about that. But as a result, lands were better protected with an organization that was devoted to ensuring these lands would be kept for generations to come. Now, there was a strong interest in the Grand Canyon being moved up that next level of protection. It was finally passed by Congress during that time. And then it finally, on this date that we celebrate, February 26, 1919, the Grand Canyon was established as a national park.
Well, this is very good news indeed.
Although it was signed into effect by Woodrow Wilson.
Well, sorry.
But it is truly a magnificent sight.
Oh, it is magnificent, isn't it? Indescribable in its beauty. And it was all that I ever wanted, for it to be protected, for our children's children and their children to enjoy.
I think you got what you wanted, and you did a very good job in getting it started.
Oh, thank you. And it just goes to show that good things can come out of Congress. Even out of Woodrow Wilson.